And joining me now, my great pleasure to introduce Jane Fonda, actress and activist, co-founder of Women's Media Center, and Gloria Steinem, author and activist, also co-founder of Women's Media Center. What a delight and treat it is to have you here. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. We're delighted to be with you.
Well, this moment, this Me Too moment, I mean, the Weinstein, dam breaking was one thing, and then this sort of just cascade afterwards. I just have been reading account after account. What do you make of this moment we're in?
It feels different. It feels like something has shifted. Yeah, it's too bad that it's probably because so many of the women that were assaulted by Harvey Weinstein are famous and white, and everybody knows them. This has been going on a long time to black women and other women of color, and doesn't get out quite the same. So, but I think it's so huge, this story, and so much is coming out that shows that it went on for so long, over so many countries, with people pimping for him, that it's really made a big difference that women have come forward, and it is like hopefully it's like a domino effect and affecting other industries. And
there's already been resignations at places, suspensions. I ticked off some of them. It also, Gloria, it struck me as it's like the logic of the strike, right? Or the fist.
It's more than one. Yeah.
The fist is stronger than the individual fingers. Yeah. That it's very terrifying for one person to level an accusation, obviously, against an extremely powerful person. But if 40 or 50 or 60. That changes the dynamic.
I think it's even more true here in this case, because if you steal money, you probably get arrested and convicted, okay, because everybody says stealing is wrong. But if you do something that's very sexist or racist, because there still is a critical mass of bias in this country, it takes more cumulative instances for it to be recognized. So we have reached a tipping point, I think, and it probably is important that, in addition to what Jane is saying, that it's who it is that came forward, also the offenders have been cross-race. There's been Cosby. They've been cross-political lines of all kinds, from right to left.
Yep.
And all of this contributes to
all men, though.
Yeah, well, there have been some women in the past. I don't want to say it's right, because the important thing to remember is that it's about power, and the idea that you have to dominate in order to be sexual. That's the fundamental problem. So there are occasionally women who sexually harass too, just many fewer, because the feminine role is not
a power dynamic.
Right.
Let me ask you specifically about Weinstein, then I want to follow up with you about Hollywood. He gave money to schools. There's a chair at Rutgers, I believe, in your name.
Yes, he gave money to Rutgers and
USC.
in his mother's name. Yeah. Right.
And I just thought, well, what did you, as someone whose name is attached to this thing?
No, but it was so lucky, because in a way, because it was early, and obviously it's going to a media chair, which is all about reporting on bias against women, including sexual harassment, right? So Rutgers could become an example to say, give this money to causes for women, give it to rape crisis centers, give it to shelters, give it to, hello, don't give it back for his legal defense fund. No.
Right, keep the money.
Yeah, right. But I think it's a strategy to
absolutely.
Well, how could he be that bad? I mean, look what he did for women. I mean, he gives women directors, an advantage and all that.
Yes, I mean, he made movies with Meryl Streep and Julie Taymor that were great movies. But it's because it's about power. Those were powerful women. So it wasn't sexualized.
But it also seemed like he was doing a bit of laundering of his reputation.
Oh, totally. That's
what I mean. That he was. Yeah. You think that?
I don't know. It was pretty risky, I have to say.
Yeah, but part of the excitement, I guess, is the risk. Is the risk, yeah. But there's another thing. So many, 12 million people in the United States work in restaurants. Most of them are women, and they're often young, but not always, but they survive on tips, which means that they have to put up with a lot of...
Every customer is a boss.
Yeah.
And if you don't look smiley with a low-cut dress and tight, and the boss tells you have to do it,
Or if you don't grimace your way through an inappropriate comment.
You're not being paid a living wage, so you depend on your tips. So this is often the first job, right? So these young women,
That's a great point.
it becomes the norm. nothing can be as horrible afterward as what was done to me in restaurants, so it must be, this is just the way life is.
So there are restaurant chains that reward or require women to have breast implants. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You know.
Let me ask you a question about, it's a great point about the service industry and restaurants and just sort of how this scales throughout an economy, right? So we're talking about the stuff at the very top. But specifically on Hollywood, you know, there's this, conservatives have really run with the Harvey Weinstein thing. And at some level I understand, right? Because their argument is basically like, you Hollywood liberals lecture us sanctimoniously all the time, and here you've got this thing happening in your own backyard. What do you think of that?
Roger Ailes. Hello.
I think it's the most ridiculous argument I ever heard. I mean,
nobody ever said that patriarchy was confined,
right?
Or racism was confined, right?
Right. It's just easier for those kind of predatory men, you know, like the president, to have access to the kind of women that he likes when he's in the model business. You know, one of them runs Miss Universe. Harvey happens to produce the the runway project. I mean,
let's just
that's not an accident.
Puts you in proximity.
Right. We have a president that profiteered off the beauty contest is absurd in itself, in addition to the fact that he is a self-confessed harasser.
Yeah, how do you think about him in the context of all this? Because it seems like, oh, there's a sort of day of reckoning has come for a lot of people. Came for Weinstein finally, but at a certain level it's like...
Yeah, no, it hasn't come for him, and I think that part of the problem, if you'll bear with me for a minute, is advertising, because advertising supports television, and therefore television rewards the number of hits, and that made him a television star, even though watching him was like watching a traffic accident. That's why it got...
But people were watching.
Yeah, people were watching.
Which is true of his presidency
as well. So that's why whoever it was said, you know, well, he may not be good for the country, but, right.
He's good for
that network, yeah, right.
And that's why we co-founded with Robin Morgan the Women's Media Center, because the media and all the platforms of media are so important, and they're controlled by men for the most part.
And I should point out the awards are tomorrow night. Hillary Clinton will be receiving an award. And I should also point out the Women's Media Center has been doing incredible work for a very long time. And a huge part of this story was broken, both my colleague Ronan Farrow here, but also Jodie Cantor and Megan Twohey, two women who talked about how important it was for them to be women reporters and getting folks to talk to them and trust them, and how important that representation is in the media that gets produced.
Yeah, both having consciousness, and especially a lot of women in the media, which is what the Women's Media Center is doing, and understanding that it is about power, and therefore, since the Women's Media Center is devoted to trying to equalize the power, it's diminishing the possibility in and of itself, in addition to the individual cases it reports.
All right, Jane Fonda and Gloria Steinem, what a treat. Thank you. If you ever want to come back at any time, we'd love to have you back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is all in.